What if I told you that some of the earliest moving images of Korea weren't filmed by Koreans themselves? That the history of Korean cinema is deeply intertwined with colonialism, war, and political turmoil. Yet it emerged as one of the most influential film industries in the world today. From silent documentaries to internationally acclaimed masterpieces, the journey of Korean cinema is one of resilience, artistic evolution, and global recognition. Stay with us as we explore its fascinating history and uncover the stories behind the films that shaped it. The earliest moving pictures of Korea were not captured by Koreans themselves, but by outsiders. In 1901, during the early years of Japanese occupation, American traveler Burton Holmes recorded what is believed to be the oldest surviving video footage of Korea. Many of these images still shape today's perception of pre-modern Korea, depicting traditional lifestyles, bustling markets, and the architecture of a bygone era. In the following years, films in Korea remained largely documentary in nature rather than narrative-driven. They were often produced to showcase the colony of Korea, then referred to as Joseon, to Japanese audiences. A prime example is the 1920 short film Gyeongsong News, a 3-minute-long reel that captures some of Seoul's most famous landmarks, including Changdeokgung Palace and Namdaemun Gate, both of which still stand today. However, 1920 also saw the emergence of Korea's earliest locally directed films. One of them, Gyunroe Guten Ganani Opda, At the End of Labor There Is No Poverty, was produced under the Japanese administration's policy of promoting a work ethic. Despite its propaganda message, encouraging Koreans to work hard and save money, it was structured as a comedy drama, making it one of the first examples of Korean storytelling in film. With the end of World War II in 1945 and the collapse of Japanese rule, Korean filmmakers were finally able to express their own stories. The immediate post-liberation years saw a surge in patriotic films such as Jayumans, Hooray for Freedom, and Dogribjonya, The Night Before Independence. These films resonated deeply with audiences who had endured 36 years of colonial rule, achieving significant box office success. But this newfound freedom was short-lived.
With the enemy falling back to the Han River, United Nations commanders had expected that the Reds would make their stand.
The outbreak of the Korean War and the subsequent political turmoil devastated South Korea's film industry. Severe economic struggles and government censorship made film production nearly impossible. It wasn't until the 1960s that Korean cinema began to recover, ushering in what is now considered the golden age of Korean cinema. Directors like Shin Sang-gok, Yoo Hyun-mok, and Kim Gi-young pioneered this era with groundbreaking films like Aimless Bullet, Obaltan, directed by Yoo Hyun-mok, a grim portrayal of post-war struggles, which critical stance on society led to its temporary ban, or The Housemaid by Kim Gi-young. Kim Gi-young's psychological thriller about a femme fatale maid remains one of Korea's most influential films, even inspiring directors like Bong Joon-ho and Martin Scorsese.
Because The Housemaid is unlike anything else I've ever seen in movies, and a world away from the rest of Korean cinema. You can feel echoes of it in horror films like Whispering Corridors and A Tale of Two Sisters. But Kim's film has its own rich sense of perversity and everyday madness. I mean, there's a kinship with Louis Buñuel and also with Poe's writings. Every image, every movement, every action is controlled. The film is hair-raisingly sharp in every detail. And I'll admit, it's quite unnerving.
라는 그런 특별한 시기에 운명처럼 나오게 된 그런 영화가 아닌가 생각이 듭니다. 군사 독재의 시작 직전이었기 때문에 더 이런 걸작, 클래식에 가까운 걸작이 나올 수 있지 않았을까 이런 생각이 들기도 하고요. 박정희 군사 정권은 이제 전두환 씨 경우와는 달리 대개 국민들의 욕망을 통제했거든요. 그 미니스커트에서 여성의 무릎팍까지 길이를 잰다거나 길에 가는 남자의 그 머리카락 길이를 통제한다거나 이런 되게 지금 보면 되게 어이없는 되게 욕망을 통제하고 그랬던 시기였는데 그 시기에 이렇게 적나라하게 인간의 욕망을 들이파헤치는 감독님이 나오셨고 그런 작품들이 나왔다는 건 참 신기해요.
As just stated, It is to a surprise that a lot of movies that were made during the time of military dictatorship are considered to be part of the Hayday Era, between early 60s to the end of the 70s, and make someone wonder how much creative output could have been created if censorship, which subtly critiqued societal restrictions under the guise of erotic dramas. Two of the biggest box office hits from this era include Yongja's Heydays, a tragic love story that also serves as a commentary on class struggles, or Winter Woman, a film exploring sexual liberation within a rigid society. Meanwhile, political unrest was brewing. In 1980, the Gwangju Uprising saw nationwide pro-democracy protests, leading to a gradual loosening of censorship. By the mid-1980s, Korean films were gaining international recognition, such as Mandala, a Buddhist philosophical drama by Im Kwon-taek, which won the Grand Prix at the Hawaii Film Festival. Gilsodium, another Im Kwon-taek film shown at the Berlin International Film Festival, marking Korea's increasing global presence. The real transformation of Korean cinema, however, began in the 1990s. In 1996, censorship laws were completely abolished, allowing directors full creative freedom. This coincided with the rise of Korea's chaebol conglomerates entering the film business. One of the earliest major hits of this new era was Marriage Story.
You're fucking insane!
No, not this one. The film Marriage Story, directed by Kim Woo-seok, was backed by Samsung and paved the way for corporate investments in film production. Although chaebols later withdrew from direct involvement, their subsidiaries like CJ Entertainment, a branch of Samsung, and Lotte Entertainment, owned by Lotte Corporation, continue to dominate Korea's movie industry today. Korean cinema has come a long way, from its early days under Japanese occupation to the rise of post-war patriotic films, and finally, to the golden age of the 1960s and 70s. But as we've seen, creativity often had to fight against censorship, political turmoil, and financial struggles. However, change was inevitable. With the gradual loosening of censorship laws in the 1980s and the complete removal of restrictions in the 1990s, a new era of Korean cinema was about to begin, one that would not only redefine storytelling in Korea, but also take the global film industry by storm. In the next part, we'll dive into the modern revolution of Korean cinema, from the rise of internationally acclaimed directors to the influence of the Korean government, and how K-cinema became a worldwide phenomenon. So if you thought Oldboy's hallway fight or Parasite's shocking twists were impressive, trust me, the story behind them is even better. Stay tuned for part 2.